After decades of deforestation and land conversion, a rare pigeon now faces the brink of extinction. Found only on 2 islands of the Philippines, its striking red mark on the chest is more than just plumage.
Mauubos kung hindi natin maprotektahan sila. Wala na silang makita ng mga hayop.
There's still a lot of people who are ignorant about their conservation status, about their threats.
So as humans, we have the power to keep other species from going extinct.
That's why conservationists in Negros Island are working tirelessly to save the Negros Bleeding-heart Pigeon.
So this is covered with many species of endemic trees found only in this heart of the city that serve as the lungs and also serve as the haven for outside birds, aside from the wild animals that we have here. I am the curator or manager of Talarak Foundation, Negros Forest Park, Biodiversity Conservation Center.
Welcome to Negros Forest Park, a conservation facility dedicated to protecting threatened and endemic animals in this region. And here they practice what we call ex situ conservation. I once passed by this place and thought, this looks like an interesting little zoo. But to my lack of wonder, I didn't bother going inside. Later on, I realized just how incredible this place is and the story behind it.
This place used to be run by the Negros Forest and Ecological Foundation.
Before going into wildlife conservation, this facility was primarily focused on forest restoration.
So we started our work in the upland of the Northern Negros Natural Park. So the place was devastated because during those years, the last part of the martial law years, nobody cares to protect the forest. Nobody dares to stop illegal loggers. So we were deployed there in early 1986 to tell the people, please stop cutting the trees.
But in the mid-1980s, an unexpected visitor arrived and sparked the idea for protecting animals.
One instance, when we conducted a training, there was a hardcore hunter. Before noontime, before our lunchtime, he came and whispered to me, and he told me, "The boy, do you want to eat a meat of the deer?" I was shocked during that time because it's the first time I heard about having that meat made from the deer. I said, yes, why not? Because I want to try it. But before that, our focus is not really on wildlife conservation. Our focus is on forest protection, but not comes to my mind for the wildlife. So I tried the meat of the deer. And then after I eat, again that hardcore hunter came to me again and he whispered, "The boy, do you want to have a baby deer?" He offered to me a deer, a baby deer, that was left by the mother because the mother was already slaughtered. And I said, yes, of course, I want to bring it. So I brought the baby deer here and we called her Osing. She cried already because she is hungry. The mother died and she didn't know that I ate portion of that meat. And every now and then, she look at you, just like a dog. When you called her Osing, she responded because she already know what her name is. Several months later, we realized that Osing is just only one here. Because of our collaboration with Silliman University, we sent Osing to Silliman. And after several months and a year, Using grow as a mature, fully mature individual. So they returned Using here with a partner, with a male partner. There was also 2 pairs of Visayan spotted deer. So that's the start of our the first formal conservation for endangered species.
Using may have left without having children, but she was an instrumental part in the creation of this foundation, which now is in the forefront of saving some of the most beautiful but highly endangered local animals in the country.
It's part of my routine now. Whenever there are surrenders or turnovers. When I started working here, when I was the in-house vet now, parang nag-rock and roll ako eh. Like, there was like a number of cases, like the eastern grass owl, another eastern grass owl, 5 leopard cats. I'm like, Jesus, calm down.
So this is the West Visayas Big Five. They are the main animals that the foundation focuses on for conservation. But aside from them, they actually work on a lot of different threatened animals.
There's just three animals that always surrendered here. It's the eastern grass owl, the reticulated python, and the Visayan leopard cat. If there's a big 5 that we need to conserve, there's this big 3. Big 3 that are always surrendered or turnovered.
Among the Big Five is the endangered Visayan warty pig, an adorable and curious native species. However, during my visit, it remains hidden from the public due to the ongoing risks of African swine fever. Within the 5 are 2 stunning hornbills. The Visayan tariktik hornbill, one of my favorite birds in the region, and the Talarak, or the Walden's hornbill, the iconic symbol of this organization. And to complete the 5, another small but charismatic bird, a unique pigeon species that's only found here in the island of Negros and Panay.
These birds are specialists, which means they have strict requirements for them to live. They prefer yung undisturbed habitats, undisturbed primary forests. Since most of the forested areas are disturbed na due to human encroachment, kaya na-threaten na yung kanilang population. Plus, they are quite a good delicacy for hunters. If you've held the Negros Bleeding-heart, yung body nila is dense and they got like big pectoral muscles. So I understand that they're quite a preference by hunters. And also, they are subject to poaching since they really look colorful and all. Those are one of the major threats on why their populations are declining.
The Negros Bleeding-heart, scientific name Gallicolumba kii, was named and described in the year 1900 by British ornithologist William Eagle Clark, after his friend William Key, who collected the bird and remarked that it was fairly common in the woods. Mr. Key, who owned a sugarcane plantation in Negros, had already known of the bird for nearly 20 years by that time.
Every week, a group of people just cut the trees, slice it, and then put it in the big trucks, and then brought it here in the city, and nobody dares to stop them. In fact, I could still remember they are also being escorted by law enforcers.
7 years after the Negros Bleeding-heart was formally described as a species, coincidentally, logging concessions were granted to the infamous ILCO, or Insular Lumber Company, which went on to establish the largest sawmill in Asia right here in Negros, speeding up deforestation and bagging up trees for profit.
We are noted to be a mono-economic province, relying only for sugar as a source of our income.
This is on top of the exponential agricultural expansion that's already happening as the island establishes itself as the sugar bowl of the Philippines. Forests were destroyed to make way for sugarcane, turning rich habitats into empty land where native wildlife could no longer survive. Losing the forest means animals lose their homes, food, and places to hide. Without these, they can't survive, so many of them die. And just like the declining forest cover, the bird that was fairly common is now declared critically endangered by the IUCN.
If you talk things about pigeons, they always tell you that they're so dumb and stupid. Doves and pigeons are so much more than what we take credit for. For one thing, they actually talk to each other with their bleeding heart markings. The male has to like stand upright, it's kind of like this, and then it has to buff his big chest and then his red mark. It kind of like wides a little bit just to make it look red and bright there, and then it makes these, but not this sound what I pronounce, but they make a very deep coo, and he'll keep doing this over and over until a potential female comes in and checks it out, and that's where they begin doing their how do I call it, their love chase. So you can see they don't have any species that does this. The South American Bacillus lizard, which is their close relative.
They will be the ones who will eventually take care of our natural resources and the animals around us. So right now, Kim is facilitating a class for these students around grade 7 and above.
There's still a lot of people who are ignorant about their conservation status, about their threats. Despite being endemic, no, and globally known na species, a lot of people don't know it kung ano yung Negros Bleeding-heart.
Mataba sa puso na makikita mo yung mga bata, especially yung mga kids. You can see their eyes glowing pag may na-share ka sa kanila na bagong knowledge or bagong lesson sa kanila. Yun, hindi lang yan for kids, but also some adults. Makikita mo na meron silang bagong natutunan galing sa'yo. Ayun, napakasarap sa puso.
Education component for conservation should be conducted also continuously.
Yung Negros Forest Park kasi, ne-expose ka talaga nila. Ikaw yung bridge between people and nature. Ayun, and wildlife.
But what I really want to understand is how exactly can you save a species from extinction?
Kung mauubos kung hindi natin maprotektahan sila, wala na silang makita ng mga hayop. O makikita na nila sa libro, sa aklat, ito, pero sa personal wala na. So gusto ko din na hindi mawala yung mga, lalo na yung mga endemic dito sa Negros.
Essentially, the way to save a species from a rapidly declining population is to help create ideal conditions for them to multiply and repopulate. So, one key indicator for their survival is that, are they breeding?
So we put them in a observation area. We put some improvised nest, and here the bleeding heart pigeon will lay her egg, sometimes 2. But to our surprise, the following day, she drops the egg. Now, why? That's a big question.
Ito, kailangan natin na i-breed o kaya kailangan natin gagawin. So, yun yung mahirap, parang napipressure ka.
So, we try to think of a measure why the bleeding heart drops the egg.
Don't treat them as just an animal. These are individuals, so treat them as such.
Because we put them in a cage where some other birds are present. So maybe that's a disturbance.
Sila yung tipo ng mga birds na parang mahiyain at saka pagkakita ng tao, nag-hide sila kaagad o kaya lumilipad.
So I concluded to myself, it's my personal observation, that this bird is secretive, jealous, and also they wanted privacy. So why not put them in a secluded area that they alone pair, the two of them just stay very privately. So we designed an enclosure exclusively for this bird. That's the start. We successfully breed this bird.
Pag wala silang disturbo, doon talaga nag-breed sila. Ayun, doon, nakapag-breed kami. Anong una, naka-breed kami sa isang taon, mga 30 plus siguro. Yun yung pinakadaming breeding na naano ko sa bleeding heart. So, pag nagka-breed, so talagang nakapagtaba ng puso.
In the world of wildlife conservation, you'll often hear the word husbandry, which refers to the responsible management and care of animals to ensure their well-being and long-term survival.
Pag 6 AM, feeding time, tapos ng feeding, observation, at saka yung cleaning sa mga enclosure nila.
So far in the husbandry, the keepers are really doing good with that one.
Here in Negros Forest Park, the animals are very well taken care of in their world-class enclosures, bespoke to each species.
Kasi pag ganito, pag spray na sila parang nasa-stimulate sila to tree, parang muulan, kumbaga.
But this alone does not guarantee their long-term survival.
Each of these species have susceptibilities to a disease or a problem. I gotta make sure that they don't have that, or at least prevent that to happen. For example, avian influenza, although we don't have an avian influenza case here, but we have to make some sort of biosecurity protocol that the birds won't transmit any materials, contaminated materials, to infect our captive populations. Because if there's any of the birds here that are positive with avian influenza, there's going to be a mass culling. Here, it's better to be proactive than reactive.
Dr. Flav is one of few Filipino doctors who choose to become a wildlife veterinarian.
Yung domestic cats, iba yung kanilang blood conditions, iba yung kanilang behavior. What you do with domestic cats, you can do it with these leopard cats. What you do with the domestic ruminants, you can't do it with these deers or the wild ruminants. I only know three wildlife vets who are into conservation.
This made me realize that it's not just the animals that are endangered. For a few days, I got to witness these veterinary medicine students training under Dr. Flav, and you can see a kind of hopeful spark in their eyes, along with a hunger to learn as much from Dr. Flav and the skilled zookeepers here in the park. Bakit mo pinili yung pagiging vet?
Well, basically the love of animals po. Very specifically more on sa exotic and wildlife. Mahirap po. It's It's not common kasi, and konti lang po yung mga exotic na vets dito sa Philippines. And wala din po siyang specialization. So ayun, sisikaping i-pursue na field.
Even though there's very little demand for wildlife specialists, their time here seems to have inspired them to pursue wildlife work over the more common path of becoming vets for domesticated animals. After spending a few days in Negros Forest Park, and after getting to know everyone, I realized that they're not just here to work. People here seem to really care about nature, and that includes the volunteers.
I really wanna help as best as I can dito sa NFP dahil gabi yung kanila, yung support din sa sa conservation sa mga forest natin dito sa Negros.
You don't need to be a scientist or a biologist to care for nature, to care for the environment. Pag pwede, pag kaya, be a volunteer, be a conservationist. You can also reduce your carbon footprints kung kailangan, kung pwede, ayun.
People want to save the things they love and have a long fascination with animals and in the natural world since I was a kid. I could remember back in the days I would usually go outside, just catching grasshoppers and watching documentaries.
No doubt, these people are deeply rooted in nature. Meanwhile, I find myself quietly questioning where I fit into all of this. That's why I wanted to go deeper. On the way to the southern part of Negros, I kept seeing these huge trucks filled with loads and loads of sugarcane. A startling reminder of what drove many of these animals to extinction. But it not only represents the agricultural sector, it represents us.
Basically, this is the last step for a captive breeding program. It's where you return animals back into the wild. Because that's the entire point of a captive breeding program is you keep these animals in captivity so you have a stock which you can then either keep or reintroduce into areas where they once were.
Here in Bayawan Nature Reserve, husbandry looks a little different. This is a 300-hectare protected forest managed by Talarak Foundation. And this is a camera trap that they position in different parts of the reserve to observe the behaviors of the animals and how they're doing.
5%. 1,000 videos.
Finding wild animals in this dense forest is not an easy task. But this reserve holds a very special place in my heart because last time I was here, I had some of the most beautiful wildlife encounters, including an extremely rare encounter with the Visayan spotted deer. But this time, what we want to find and document in the wild is the Negros Bleeding-heart.
So my name is I'm Justin Magbanoa, and I'm currently the manager for the Bayawan Nature Reserve.
But how does one really manage and take care of a 300-hectare forest? This forest is fenced and designed to keep the animals protected within this reserve, and today, our job is to map certain parts of the fence and make sure that it's still intact.
Nag-map kami ng like sa fence line ngayon, may mga hindi tama yung like border ng areas dito sa reserve. So yun, ngayon parang ina-update namin yung fence lines sa reserve currently.
These are volunteers and on-the-job trainees in the field of science. And instead of choosing the comfort of a nice swivel chair with the protection of the four walls, they chose to be out here exposed to the elements. Aside from making sure the fences are still doing their job, they also go on regular trips to scout areas that need reforestation. The idea here is they're trying to map out using the GPS which parts of the nature reserve needs to be reforested. Because at the end of the day, the forest is the animal's home and it needs to be kept healthy. I just found out how much work needs to be done to maintain and really make this place a safe haven for wildlife. And they do all of that for them. So most of the enclosures are here. But as for the bleeding heart, they decided to put them somewhere more secluded and more quiet.
From the center, so Negros Forest Park, we bring them here. We don't release right away because that's just too stressful for the birds. We keep them in a soft release enclosure, so an enclosure that's out in the middle of their habitat for them to get accustomed to their surroundings. After around 2 weeks up to a few months, then we'll start to open the enclosure, but we don't scare them out. We let them go out at their own time.
Backed exclusively by funding and expertise from Toledo Zoo in the US, Talarak makes sure the Bleeding Hearts release program has the critical support it needs to succeed.
Siyempre, malaki na yung kanilang ng natural habitat. So siyempre okay, ito na nang masaya na sila kasi parang free na sila.
In these enclosures, the birds are one step closer towards returning to their natural habitat.
We really want to conserve them, so all of us. So I'm very optimistic in restoring and reintroducing them in their natural habitats.
The question now is, how would these captive animals fare against the true forces of nature?
We've released a few of them and they've stayed in the reserve. We track them daily, see their movement patterns and their natural behavior in the wild. We're currently tracking around 5 or 6 individuals.
And now, our goal is to find and document the released Negros Bleeding-heart Pigeons to see how well they are adapting to the wild forest of Negros Island.
My number one thing for working here is that finally I get to be working in a place where I just used to watch on TV. And it's grown from just more than that into giving a chance for the next generation to see animals that they didn't think we'd have in the Philippines, and it's right in their own backyard, you know?
Before the bleeding hearts are released, Justin carefully fits the bird with this radio tracker to monitor their movements and better understand their behavior within the forest.
To know na maganda yung isang reintroduction, these individuals that were from captivity will successfully breed in the wild. That's how we say na, okay, they successfully bred. That's something that I'm not are there any news? Sinabi ni Sir Justin? Wala pa na they have bred. Because we have this Visayan Tarictic hornbill that was from here in NFP, released there in Bayawan, and then it bred. So we can conclude na, okay, then our reintroduction program is a success because it breed. That's the point eh. They breed there so that they can maintain a population.
So for now, ano yung biggest challenge nyo na na-experience nyo ngayon with the bleeding hearts right here?
Our biggest challenge is actually to get them to breed because they have very specific habitat requirements. And we're trying to meet those here in the reserve with our reforestation activities as well as curating to an extent that it remains as natural as possible, the areas where they live in. And learning their behavior, obviously, because that gives us a better insight on how to breed or how to get them breeding in the wild.
More than a safe haven, this place is essentially a research center where conservationists continuously learn about nature and how to create the best possible conditions for these animals to thrive.
Their genus name, Gallicolumba. So Galli, Gallus, chicken-like. Columba, dove, so chicken-like dove. They act a lot like chickens. They stay on the ground. They're a ground dove. And they'd rather run away than fly away from people, which is quite funny because they're a very easy prey animal. And each with their own individual personalities, as we've figured out with some of the behavior studies that we've been doing.
Now, the efforts to rewild the species may be moving forward, but with every step, the risks of failure grow as well. That's why even outside of this protected forest, Talarak makes sure to leave no stone unturned. So right now, they're conducting surveys, asking people around door to door if they've seen these animals. And they're also asking for kind of awareness and how people perceive different types of animals that are here in Negros.
I went up in the upland communities and I asked them, have you seen this bird just lately in your community, in your engagement in the forest? Where? Which particular? When? Can you recall when? Can you recall what are they doing? So those are the questions I asked.
They remember it. They say they've seen it. But we can't just rely on word of mouth. They know how to describe the bird. But what we need right now is photos. Photo evidence of these animals. The vast majority of the island used to be lowland forest. The bleeding hearts are a lowland forest species which is 0 to 800 meters above sea level, roughly. Most of our forests now are higher than that, remaining intact forest patches, 700 meters up. So very few locations on the island which is good habitat for the bleeding hearts. The only place I've seen bleeding hearts in the wild was in Panay, in the Sibalyu Research Station. And that's it. I haven't seen bleeding hearts here in the wild for all those times that we've done field work all over the island.
People don't know that we need these animals to exist. The destruction of forests and the dwindling biodiversity has changed our climate.
The more we damage nature, the more prone we are for devastating climatic events. Stronger rains, rising sea levels, longer, hotter droughts. It's, I think, the ecosystem's way of trying to balance things out.
The more we destroy nature, the more difficult our lives will be. So, saving them could mean saving ourselves.
Sir, mas mahalaga para mas maraming makakita ng yung mga kabataan dahil yung mga endangered na po yun, sir. Yung mga sapat yan.
Yung hindi nila nakikita noon, makikita nila ngayon.
Minsan nga, mayroong pangyayari na malapit 5 buwan na hindi kami nagsasahod. Oo.
Talaga?
Yung hindi pa talarak.
So napamahal na kayo talaga sa mga hayop.
Oo.
Kasi kung magsistay ka ng 5 months tas walang sweldo, mahal mo na talaga yung ginagawa mo na. I realized that it's not just my encounter with wildlife that made me fall in love with conservation. It's the incredible people on a crazy but important journey towards something beyond themselves. They showed me that I don't need to be a scientist or a doctor to do my part in conservation. They showed me that animals are not so different from you and me. They showed me that love can transcend beyond our own species. And they showed me that hard work will never fail you. That's why to do my part in this mission of Talarak, I need to find them in the wild. On a regular basis, they track the bleeding hearts during the day.
Ito po yung tinatawag na radio receivers. Ito po yung naghanap po ng transmitter para sa collar kung saan yung banda yung hinahanap namin. Ito po si bleeding heart frequency.
So si Sir Dodong, habang nagtatrack kami, meron siyang na-spot na bleeding heart dito sa taas. Seeing them here, slowly adjusting to this forest, might seem like a trivial moment, but it offers a glimpse into a time when nature and humans once lived in harmony. This is one of the important things that they need to do to study the behaviors of these animals and to check out how they're doing at night, basically.
Each animal has its own intrinsic value, wherein it's valuable just because it's alive. So as humans, we have the power to keep other species from going extinct.
After this expedition, I'm extremely optimistic that one day we will see this very forest teeming with wildlife. And that includes the Negros Bleeding-heart Pigeons. But for that to happen, we need more people like them who are willing to take on the challenge and stand between these animals and extinction.
Feels like we are strangers.